Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Everyday Strong with Dr. Michael G. Daniels. This is your host, CB Baker. We got a great episode today. Today we're going to be talking about adultery. And the main part of adultery, we're going to cover some questions in here, is what is adultery and how is it different from fornication? You hit me with that question of a topic and I was like, I said to myself, isn't it the same thing? But I said, well, if he asked me that as a question, it obviously isn't the same thing. So let's dive right into this. So what is the difference between adultery and fornication?
Right. And there is a difference, right? I mean, well, I shouldn't say it right, but yes, there is a difference. Adultery is something that happens with married couples. Fornication is what happens with single individuals. Now, both of them involve intimacy. Both of them involve sexual contact.
Right.
Right. But a person that is in a marriage relationship, if they go outside of the marriage to engage in intimacy or sexual gratification, that's considered adultery. If two people are single and they engage with another single person in intimacy that is sexual gratification, then that's considered fornication. And there were different remedies. Well, they were different remedies for the two in the Old Testament. Now, they were close in the punishment. They were close in, I would say, the severity of how they were looked at.
Right.
But they were not the same. And so that's really the distinguishing part is that whether or not you're married or whether you're single.
Okay. So now the other questions you have up here is, why doesn't God consider biblical figures like Abraham and Jacob as adulterers?
Well, and see, that's a question I think that we get. I have got asked a lot, but I think when people appreciate the question that people ask, you have to understand why that seems relevant, right? Because when we think of adultery, we think of if I have sex with someone other than my wife, right? Well, Abraham had sex with someone other than his wife. In fact, his wife gave him a handmaid to say, go in and get her pregnant. But there's nothing that gives us the impression that was viewed as an adulterous a thing, even though he had sex outside the marriage. And in fact, a child was produced in that, by that marriage, right? And not only that, if you look at Jacob, right? Jacob had sex with several women, right? 2 wives and some handmaids, but none of that was considered adulterous, right? So, to me, that's a powerful question. Then, whether if they did it, what's the difference,
right?
And why then are we seen in a different light? And how could they commit adultery? Because we know the laws were on the books in the Old Testament. The laws of adultery are not new laws, right? They were on the books in Moses' time, but yet and still people had that latitude, right? For example, Moses predated David, right? Mm-hmm. He predated Solomon, right? But we know Solomon had a concubine, right? Solomon had several wives, and he also had concubines, which means he had mistresses, right? So why isn't all those concubines and mistresses considered adultery? There's nothing in the Bible to suggest that God saw it that way, right? I'm not saying he didn't,
right?
But I'm saying we don't find the punishment, right? Because we know that there was a punishment for adultery. It was stoning to death,
right?
But no one tried to stone Solomon.
Good luck trying.
Right. Right. But not only that, there's no record of any of the priests saying to Solomon, you have defied the will of God.
Right.
Right. There's no record of that. So that would suggest then that for reasons that we may not fully understand, it was permissible by God for them to do that.
Right.
Right. If David was a man after God's own heart, and we know David committed adultery now, the Bible tells us that, and God punished him for his adulterous act. That's the thing. He punished him for that adulterous act, right?
Right.
So the question is then, is adultery a malicious thing? Is it a mental thing, or is it a physical thing? And this is going to be the hard one to grapple with, and because people are sometimes uncomfortable with the truth. Okay, what made David's adultery worthy of the death of a child, because the child born through David, we know what, died. And we know that was because the Lord said, hey, you know what? I don't like what you did. We know the child that was born through Abraham and his handmaid lived. Ishmael lived. There was no retribution for that. In fact, he was welcomed in the home until Abraham's wife got upset and said, kick them jokers out. Right. Solomon, his offspring, lived. Right. David's other children lived. Okay. Right. The other ones lived. So what is the difference? Well, when David committed adultery, he also committed murder.
Yes.
Right? Because he was with another man's wife. Right? And so the way the Old Testament looks at adultery is not if a man simply has sex with another woman, but if a man has sex with another man's wife, then he commits adultery. If he has sex with another woman, she became his wife. So he could have more than one wife. Now, if he didn't take care of her, right, then he was forcing her into a fornicative relationship.
Gotcha.
Because if you took her, you were supposed to take care of her.
Right.
Right. So that's the primary difference.
Hence why King Solomon had
why he could have as many as he wanted, because what? They didn't belong to somebody else.
Right.
So and that's the way it was distinguished then, during that time period. Now, we view it different now, and people will say, well, it's because of culture, what have you. But what I would say to people is this, I don't think God really sets his rules up based on our culture. I think God sets his rules up based on what he wants to set his rules up. We may not like his rules, but they still are his rules. They still are his laws.
So what's the name of those that religion? Not the Mennonites.
Mormons?
The Mormons, the ones that practice that. Mm-hmm. Are they using that as a foundation to justify having multiple wives?
Well, I won't look at it. I won't necessarily say they're using it as a justification. Right. Okay. If you use it to say it's a justification, this is what I would say that would be like, right? If I drink wine, I would use it by justifying by saying Jesus turned water into wine. Right. No. So I don't think you have to justify what's lawful, right? It is or it isn't. And I can't tell you because I'm not Mormon, obviously, right? I mean, I do know a little about their religion, but I don't think they were doing something just because they wanted to justify it. I think that it was just a part of their culture, who they were and what they did. And for example, if you think of our culture, right, black Americans that can trace themselves back to Africa, right? When I was visiting Africa, and this is not true for every place in Africa, but in the Ivory Coast, the gentleman said to me, "You can have as many wives as you can afford." Okay, now some of them were Christians, but that's still how they thought. You have as many wives as you can afford, because that was their culture. And their culture, I don't think they did it based on the Bible justifying it. I think that's just a part of how they were. Right. And they became Christians and just never, okay, we don't stop. Just like I think with the Hebrews, that was a part of how they did business, right? For Sarah to tell Abraham, "I will give you Hagar to get pregnant," that wasn't something she just got out the Bible because she hadn't read the Bible. Right. That was a part of how they were back in that time. Right. The handmaid belonged to Sarah. So therefore she said, "I can do with my handmaid as I choose. I want my handmaid to become a surrogate mother." But there was no in vitro fertilization. So therefore, Abraham, you go into the tent with her and you get her pregnant. And even when Hagar caused Sarah to get angry, Abraham says what to his wife? "That's your handmaid. Right. Don't talk to me about her. It's your handmaid. You do with her as you see fit." And so they view things in a different light than the way we view things in today. So I'm saying the same thing. Now, again, I'm not in the Mormons' minds, but I'm saying just like with Abraham, I don't think he was thinking, I need to justify something.
Right.
It was just a part of who he was. And I'm thinking that the Mormons probably feel the same way. It's just a part of who we are.
So now I already know that the people listening, watching this, their eyes didn't roll so hard. But that is like you said, sometimes the truth is hard to swallow. So why? So culture is the reason why we changed to going from that type of model to being one on, like, you with one wife and that's what you got, or is it because we couldn't afford multiple wives?
Well, we could trace it through history, obviously, and that
Right.
that might be beyond the scope of our conversation.
Right.
But a part of it is culture, I would say, and you got to remember, culture for most places was set, and then they adopted Christianity. It wasn't the other way around.
Right, right.
It wasn't they had Christianity and then they adopted a culture.
Right.
And so the culture was first, and you bring Christianity in and you overlaid it on the culture. It don't mean everything they did they stopped doing.
Right.
They kept doing things. And remember, with Abraham, for example, God didn't tell him he couldn't do it. Nobody said to Abraham, hey, listen, you cannot go into Hagar. There was nothing that he had that told him that. The only instruction he got from God was, leave where you are, leave your kinfolk, take with you just this group of people, and go to a land that I will show you. That was the instruction he got. And if you do that, based on your doing what I told you to do, the Lord said, I will bless you. I will bless those that bless you. I will curse those that curse you. And I will multiply your seed. So it will be, if you look at the stars in the sky, it will be just like that. The sands on the sea, it'll be just like that. So there was nothing to tell him your culture was wrong.
Right.
Only thing he received was, do what I told you to do and leave here and go. And that was it. So he believed God. And the Bible tells us that his belief in God was imputed as righteousness.
All right. So now we've covered the third question. The fourth question is, why do people feel it's necessary to go outside of their marriage for intimacy and or sex?
Well, that's a tough one. I'll take that back. Because it's not generic in answer, right? But I can answer the question based on my years of counseling, right? And I've been counseling since 1989. Okay, so it's been a while. But I've also been alive for a while. You learn from just being alive.
Right.
And this is so folk don't get upset. I'm talking generically. I'm not talking like this is everybody fits the same thing, right? Basically, all human beings crave intimacy. All human beings don't crave sex, but all human beings crave intimacy. And the way we display intimacy is often through sex. Not all the time, but often through sex.
Right.
The issue of adultery is not just the act of sex. The issue of adultery is also the intimacy that gives you that arousal.
Right.
Okay. In fact, Jesus said that if you lust after someone, it is as if you have already done the act. Not that you had to do the act, he said, but you have created the same, I guess, if you could put a qualifier on sin, it would be equal. To doing it to wanting to do it is the same.
Right.
Okay. Now, oftentimes, if a person is not getting the intimacy that they feel that they need or that they deserve, sometimes I deserve it and you're not giving it to me. And sometimes I need it, because all of us need intimacy. All of us need to feel important in relationships. And so oftentimes when people aren't getting that, they will seek it elsewhere, but not necessarily they will seek it they're not necessarily hunting for it. Let me put it that way. Mm-hmm. Is that it happens.
Right.
Like, let's say, for example, if a man is his time, he never tells his wife she's beautiful. He never holds her hand. He never opens the car door. He never, kisses her on the cheek. He never sends flowers. he's watching the game all the time. And when she want to talk, baby, I'm watching the game right now, and he's really not giving her any time. And let's say she goes to work, and when she gets to work, some guy who's, he's friendly, say, hey, you know what? I noticed that you got a new dress on today. That's really becoming. That really looks nice on you. He ain't trying to flirt. He's just making a comment, right? And then she may come to work 2 weeks later, and the hair is real nice, and he may say, hey, that hairstyle, I like that on you. And then she's like, it's my hairstyle? Yeah, last week your hairstyle was in this way, and then this week it's in this way. Yeah, you look nice that way. And you look nice the last time too, but this is really you. And so after, we all like those compliments. We all like to feel good. So after a while, the person, because they're getting compliments, will tend to, maybe make sure that morning when they come to work, if they're feeling bad, walk past that desk.
Right.
So he can give you another compliment. And he does, right? And so the things that make us feel good, our heart tends to move toward.
Right.
So the more that person is making you feel good, the more your heart moves toward that person. And you will go to like that person, And if that person physically matches up in your head, what might be attracted to you, that adds to it.
Right.
It just adds to it. Now, if the right circumstances present themselves, it might lead to physical intimacy, but it's already led to emotional intimacy.
Right.
So emotionally, according to what Jesus says, you've already committed adultery anyway. Not that you should take further. Right. I'm not saying that.
Right.
But I'm saying you've really already done it, just because what you were not getting at home, you were getting with this person on the job. Right. And so, you might go to lunch together every now and again, and people reward people who make them feel good.
Yes.
Right. So if the guy's making her feel good, then she may be like, well, hey, listen, you know what? I made this great chocolate cake this past Sunday. I know you said you like chocolate cake. So, I went ahead and I brought you a nice slice of it, and it goes some milk to go along with it. Right. And now he feels good. Right. So now the two of you are feeling good. And so before you know it, both of you all flirting a little bit, and boom, boom, boom. And that's usually, I'm just saying, that's the main thing. I know people often say that men do it just for it's available. Right? Give them opportunity, don't they jump on it? That's not true. As a man, you and I both know that. Right. That you don't want to sleep with every woman who may say yes to you. Right. And there are women who will want you, and you'll still be like, no, that ain't gonna work with me. Right. Because it's really a similar thing. It may not have this. It may not be to the same degree, but it's still a similar thing. Right. Is that if you are getting everything you need one place, you don't seek it another place, and you're more apt to realize that I'm not going to risk this for that. I'm not saying people don't make mistakes. People make mistakes all the time. But in general, that's why people end up in adulterous relationships. Once you get in them, it's hard to get out. That's the other thing. People who get in those relationships have a difficult time breaking away because it's an addictive process. Just like it's hard to stop smoking a cigarette. It's hard to stop drinking alcohol. It's hard to stop doing crack cocaine. Because if over here I'm feeling good, right, I go home and I'm feeling miserable. Right. You want to feel good, so it's hard to break it. And what makes it even more detrimental is this. See, the person you're home with, you got to wash their dirty drawers. You got to deal with the bills with them. You got to deal with all the problems with them. The person you're out there on the lunch break with, there are no problems.
There are no problems, right.
So everything seems nice and everything seems wonderful. So in your head, you become enamored with that nice feeling, and you just want to get it again, and so it becomes addictive.
So how do we prevent that from even happening? Mm-hmm. I guess let's say you miss the Holy Spirit's tap on the shoulder, CB, now you shouldn't be going over there to, you shouldn't eat that piece of cake. Right. Right. But but then here comes the devil. Well, it's just cake. it's just a piece of cake. But it could come with something else attached to it down the road.
Right. Well, see, the Bible, and everything we've talked about is in the Bible, right? But the Bible tells us how to guard against the other person feeling like they need to get that intimate feelings somewhere else. Okay. So let's take the man first, right? The Bible says in the book of Ephesians, right, that we should be to our wives as Christ is to the church.
Right.
Right. Christ, according to the Bible, supplies our every need according to his riches in glory. Well, that means that the husband, if he wants to keep his wife in his heart, needs to make sure he supply her every need. See, there's a need for intimacy.
Right.
There's a need for her to feel beautiful. There's a need for her to feel like she's important in his life. And that means he has to be able to do that so the next philanderer that's out there on the corner won't be able to outdo him.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because she doesn't want the guy on the corner. She doesn't want that guy.
Right.
Right? She wants you. That's why she married you.
Right.
That's all you have to do now is just make sure you keep her feeling special in your life, right? So if we do the same thing that other person would have done, right? You know, you take this, for example. A person that's cheating on their spouse has to work hard. You got to hide.
Right.
You got to sneak around. You got to get twice the money to buy gifts for two different people, all this kind of stuff, right? What if the guy took all the effort that he was using to cheat and put the effort on his wife?
Yeah. The whole dynamic would change.
Right? Wouldn't it change everything?
Yeah.
So rather than taking her out, the girlfriend out to lunch, take your wife out to lunch, right?
Right.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what you do, right? If you want to make sure your wife is secure and you don't worry about, you know, Jody, because in my day it was Jody, you know, that was the name, ain't no sense in going home. Jody got your gal and gone. That was the song, right? If you want to worry about Jody, then you take your wife out once a week, you know, for lunch. You know, you call up, hey babe, what you doing? Been thinking about you. You know, let's go to lunch, right? You send flowers, not just on Valentine's Day, but you send flowers, just let her know I'm thinking about you. You know, you leave a card in the front seat of the car. So when she get in the car, she got a nice card from you. It doesn't take a whole lot. That's what, $79, something like that. It doesn't take a whole lot. It could be one rose you leave on the car seat.
Right.
But see, now what you've done is you got her mind thinking about you all day long. If you do it in the morning, she's thinking about you all day long, you know, all day long, you know, and that's the thing. It's those things, you know, or if you put something in her head early that day, hey baby, look here. I know you're rushing out to work, but listen, when you come home at night, let's go out such a place.
Right.
Let's get somebody to watch the kids and then we're going out. Now all day, that's what she's thinking about is, you know what, when we get home, we're going to go out here, we're going to go out there. And so that's her motivation. And that's what's on her head. So she's still feeling good. And so, because we have to remember that our wives are not just mothers, right? They're not just wives,
right,
but they're women.
Right.
And so you have to make them feel like a woman and then also make them feel like they are the best wife and also make them feel like they are the best mother because that's a need for her.
Right.
And so if we do that, then no one else can outdo you doing that, right? Because you know her better than anybody. But the reverse is also true. That's what the Bible says, right, in Ephesians. Treat her like Christ treats us. Now, notice that we're not perfect.
Right.
It is too. But Christ doesn't change how he treats us. And that's the key. Men have a tendency to change how they treat their wife because their wife isn't perfect. Mm. But you shouldn't.
Right.
You should treat her the same way Christ keeps
Because we're quick to do that. You know, I ain't doing X, Y, and Z because they ain't done this for me.
Right.
Or they you know.
It didn't cook last week.
Right.
So therefore, we don't want to do something. But the Bible doesn't say that. It says that's not what you do. You treat her the way Christ treats you. You make a mistake, Christ doesn't change his love. He doesn't change your need, you know, get taking your needs. Right? Then you have the reverse. Well, what if you're the wife and you want to make sure your husband doesn't cheat? I know women won't believe me on this, but you should, because I'm a man, so I'm telling you. I'm telling you how men think, right?
Right.
The Bible says this in Proverbs, right? In the final chapter, it says that the virtuous woman, her husband, his heart does safely trust in her, and in her he shall have no need of spoil. Right. So what does that mean? Two things. One is saying that for the man, there are two things that needs to happen. One is that he should never have to worry about you hurting him. You know, in other words, sometimes ladies, and that have power in their tongue that they don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can put you in a place that will make you feel less than what you are,
Right.
less than a man, right? And so if you're using your tongue to chastise a grown man, to make him feel less like he's a boy, he's going to want somebody to make him feel like a man.
Right.
And so if his wife is making him feel like a boy, but somebody else is telling him how great a man he is, he wants that feeling.
Right.
So he's going to go for it. So the wife had to be careful to recognize that I need to protect his heart at all times, right? The final thing it says, and that he shall have no need of spoil, right? That means that a woman shouldn't use her body as a weapon, right? That you should give him to him how he want it, when he want it,
Right.
as many times as he want it, until he don't want it no more.
Right.
Right? And matter of fact, he should leave the house so tired, he can't do nothing else.
Right. Go sit down and watch TV.
Right. Hey, listen, I was at a comedy club. It's been a while. It's about 35 years ago. I'm at a comedy club. I'm watching the Dale Givens, right? And I'm on the front row, got my feet on the stage. That's literally how close I was, because we were at a club. And Adele Givens was talking, and she said and ladies, don't get mad with me, all right? Adele Givens said to the ladies, she said, "You see these big lips right here? God gave them to me for a reason." She said, "I know how to keep my man at home." She said, "When he tell me he want to go to the club, I go in there and I iron his shirt, and I iron his pants, and I lay it out for him." And I said, "Baby, go ahead and hook yourself on up." She said, "I spray the perfume on him, I cook him a nice meal, and I get him a drink to go. And right before he gets to the door, I said, honey, but before you leave, let me give you something to remember me by." She said, "When I finish with him, he stick his thumb in his mouth and lay down and go to sleep."
Go sleep.
He ain't going nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. So I listen, ladies, don't get mad at me. But that's what Ephesians says. When it says, so he shall have no need of spoil, it means that that's what you do to your man. See, here's the key. And I know, people aren't going, they understand it, they may not appreciate it. Every man wants to feel like a man.
Yeah.
Right? You know why a whore is able to get $150,000 and $1,000? Ladies, do you know why? Because you all think that way. Why are you going to pay this whore all this money?
Right.
You know why she can get it? It's because she fakes all the time. Think about this. There are men, just like this senator from New York, right? That got busted been a while back. And he was paying $1,000 a pop.
Right.
Right? 1,000, that's a lot of money. $1,000 a pop, right?
Right.
In the movie that was Indecent Proposal.
Right.
$1 million, right? Why? Because they made the person feel like they was the king of the castle.
Yep.
Right? Now, every man wants to feel like he's Mandingo.
Right.
Now, he may not be. He you know what I'm saying? But he wants to feel that way. But women can make you feel like you're nothing. Easy, right? Easy, easy. If they just say, "You done yet?" You done yet? Right? Then you messed all up. Or they roll over and go downstairs and start mopping the floor. You're like, what in the world?
Right.
Well, I guess, But that's what that verse is talking about, right? If you make him feel like a man, make him feel like he's king of the castle, it changes the whole dynamic. That's what a whore does. She in there screaming to the top of her lungs.
Yep.
Really, come on, she done been with 20 men that same day. But she's screaming to the top of her lungs, just like, it's the best thing that ever happened to her. But all she's doing is looking at the corner of her eye and see how much money on the dresser, right? And, I'm just, we put it in raw terms, but I'm just saying that's a part of it, that's a part of how men's mind, that's how their minds work.
Right.
And so if you do that, he ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
He'll be right there. So, and the same thing vice versa, right? If the man does what we just talked about,
yep,
she ain't going nowhere.
Right, because the gigolo doing the same thing too.
You better know it. That's what that's all he gonna do.
Yeah.
Is tell her, can't nobody love you like I can love you.
Right.
He don't love you like I can. He don't appreciate you. You listen, girl, you worth too much to be letting a man walk over top of you like that. He's telling the woman that he's not treating you like you ought to be treated.
Right.
But if she knows it's a lie, then she knows it's game.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you dropped a whole lot of knowledge on this one.
Well, we'll see how it come out during the wash.
You got anything else before we close out?
No, I just want to say to folk, listen, we got this subject because one of our members, a lovely young lady, said, Pastor, and was talking to Mr. Baker, said, listen, this is what I think should be a good topic. And I'm just saying to you all, listen, I know you got us checked out. I know you got us tuned in. But please, if you have some questions, send it to us. If you have some topics you want us to discuss, send it to us. Don't be shy. We want to not just be entertainment. We want our podcast to change your life for the better, so you can walk away saying, you know what? I am in love with who I am, and I am in love with who God has made me.
Amen. Thank y'all for tuning in and watching. This is your host, CB Baker. Till next time.